A single borage plant can push out 4,570 flowers per square metre in one season. And bees don't just visit, they take over 73% of all insect traffic on that field. So how did this blue wildflower that farmers grow for bee fuel and seed oil contracts end up sitting on your $40 salad and inside your face cream? In this video, we break down how borage gets sold as a restaurant garnish versus sold as GLA supplement capsules versus rubbed on your skin as barrier repair, and the quick dose and sourcing checks you can start using today to spot the difference between a safe bite and a quiet liver risk, building up at 0.007 micrograms per kilogram every single morning. You see this blue flower in salads. But nobody tells you what it actually does. You ate something blue last week, sat right there on your salad, tiny little star-shaped flower, and you just chewed it. Didn't think twice. It tasted like fresh cucumber, which made no sense because it was a flower, but your mouth just went along with it. That flower has a name. It's called borage. Borago officinalis. Restaurants throw it on plates because it looks expensive in photos, chefs use it like edible confetti, and your brain sees something pretty on a plate and just relaxes. But hold on, because what nobody told you at that dinner table is going to change how you look at every single trendy ingredient on your feed. And it starts with a number so small you can barely say it out loud. A number that European food safety agencies wrote down and most people have never seen. Borage carries something called pyrrolizidine alkaloids, PAs. European regulators track these compounds because of long-term liver risk tied to repeated exposure. Not one bite, not one salad. We're talking weeks and months of quiet daily doses adding up inside your body while you feel absolutely nothing. Germany's Federal Risk Agency, the BfR, put a number on this. About 0.007 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day sits in the low concern zone for certain PAs. Do that math for a 60 kilogram adult and you land at roughly 0.42 micrograms daily. That number is so tiny you could blow past it every morning and never feel a thing. And that's exactly the problem. Your first bite of borage tricks your brain into dropping its guard. Now here's where your taste buds played a trick on you. The first time you bit into borage, your mouth expected floral, something perfumey. Instead you got a cool, clean cucumber. And that one moment of confusion did something dangerous. It made you trust this flower instantly. Because when food tastes clean and fresh, you stop asking questions. That automatic trust is how people jump from cute restaurant garnish to everyday kitchen habit without a second thought. Suddenly, borage is sitting between your spinach and your basil, like it belongs there. Nobody stopped to Google it, nobody asked a pharmacist. The flavour said safe, and that was enough. But wait, a study in food control tested 106 leaf samples across different growth stages and 33 flower samples, and the results flipped the whole risk picture upside down. PA levels ran highest in the youngest plants, the baby leaves, the sprouts, which means those trendy microgreens at your health food store, they're packing a bigger dose per bite than the full-grown leaves most people worry about. And it gets worse. A separate review on edible flowers found PAs can spread through soil transfer and pollination routes. So even a clean borage flower can pick up toxins from whatever grew next to it in the field. Nobody puts that on the menu. Still, borage brings real nutrition. About 21 calories per 100 grams, roughly 35 milligrams vitamin C, around 470 milligrams potassium, and 93 milligrams calcium. Strong enough that whole cultures ate it as a real vegetable, not decoration. And that double identity is how it built a reputation going back hundreds of years. A reputation that involves soldiers, bravery, and a Latin phrase that somehow ended up in your Instagram feed. The so-called courage plant has a side that might shock your doctor. Long before anyone filmed a salad for likes, borage already had die-hard fans across Europe. Old herbal writers linked it to courage and good mood. They kept repeating a Latin phrase that roughly translates to, "I, borage, bring joy." That line spread through books and medical texts for centuries like a meme that just wouldn't die. that branding jumped platforms, from dusty herbal books straight to wellness blogs. But the claim never got updated with actual proof, and no clinical trial backs up the idea that borage fixes anxiety. People drank borage tea at social gatherings, felt relaxed because they were around friends and laughing, and gave the plant credit for what the moment created. The setting did the work. The flower just sat there looking pretty. Humans confuse "I felt good while drinking this" with "this made me feel good." That gap between coincidence and cause is where every herbal myth gets its oxygen supply. But something about borage did catch the attention of real lab researchers, and it had nothing to do with courage or mood. The real interest landed on borage seeds and one specific fatty acid hiding inside the oil. A fatty acid that completely messes with everything you've been told about omega fats. The oil from these seeds breaks every rule about omega fats. Somebody probably told you omega-6 fats are bad. For most sources, that advice tracks fine. Soybean oil, corn oil, processed snacks, all loaded with omega-6 and all tied to problems when you eat too much. Borage oil walked into that conversation and broke the rules. Borage seed oil carries gamma-linolenic acid at 20 to 26% GLA, one of the richest natural sources on the planet. And GLA follows a different path inside your body than the usual omega-6 villain. It converts into DGLA, which connects to pathways tied to inflammation modulation. An omega-6 fat acting like it's switched teams. That contradiction is exactly what made supplement companies fall in love with this oil. The raw seed numbers back it up. One study reported borage seeds running about 32% lipids and 23.7% protein, with linoleic acid at 35.1%, oleic plus elaidic at 20.8%, and GLA at 17.9%. Those are heavy numbers for a seed most people have never even heard of. But numbers on a research paper mean nothing if they don't show up in real human results. And one trial produced numbers so wild they almost look like a data error. Except they came straight from a published controlled study that passed peer review. Joint pain numbers. Get strange. When people quietly add borage to their day, picture this. Your hands barely close when you wake up. Every knuckle is swollen and locked. That happens every single morning for months. That's daily life with rheumatoid arthritis. And most people dealing with it have already run through every option their doctor handed them before looking at anything else. A double-blind trial gave borage seed oil to 37 people with active RA and tracked them for 24 straight weeks. Tender joint counts dropped 36%. Tenderness scores fell 45%. Swollen joints went down 28%. Swollen joint scores dropped 41% compared to placebo. Well, that's not a wellness influencer talking. That's published clinical data from a controlled setting. A separate trial with 56 participants followed a similar design, and the signal held up. When a Cochrane review, basically the highest bar for medical evidence, looked at herbal therapy for RA, they called it moderate evidence that GLA oils can help manage symptoms. Moderate means real signal, not certainty, not rejection, just enough to keep researchers funded and interested. But that word moderate is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and most people reading headlines will never know what it actually means in science. But the second regular people hear inflammation, their brain jumps to blood pressure, heart stuff, skin, the whole wellness bingo card, and the gap between what the data showed and what people started believing. You could park a truck in it. This garden flower can mess with blood pressure. And most people have zero idea. Someone swaps their afternoon soda for borage tea, and 4 days later they text their group chat saying they found a natural fix. What they skipped over is they just cut 40 grams of sugar per day and drank more water. Their body responded to that swap, not the flower floating in the cup. That confusion between the habit change and the ingredient is where herbal myths get their staying power. Your better choices did the work, but the timing lined up perfectly with the tea, and your brain tagged the plant as the reason. Animal studies on borage do show blood pressure signals in lab models, but animal signals and human proof live in totally different worlds. Jumping between them without admitting that gap is how people stack herbal routines on top of blood pressure medication and end up dizzy in the grocery store. The PA safety math snaps back into this conversation hard. BFR documents put that 0.007 microgram per kilogram benchmark in writing for a reason, and EMA documents reference similar values. Daily borage tea with prescription pills running through your system at the same time isn't adventurous. It's a collision waiting to happen on a random Tuesday. And somehow, after all this talk about liver risk and microgram math, borage still ended up inside your $40 face cream, sitting right there on the ingredient list between things you can't pronounce, which is a story that involves a marketing trick you never saw coming. Old war stories about bravery and then borage randomly lands in your skin. Cream? The skincare pitch is simple. Borage oil has GLA. GLA connects to skin barrier research in a few papers. Brands slap barrier repair on the label and charge luxury prices. Clean enough for an ad campaign. Vague enough that nobody checks what the clinical evidence actually says. And that evidence is ice cold. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial recruited 151 patients with atopic eczema, pulled clean data from 140 of them, including 69 children, gave adults 920 milligrams GLA daily for 12 weeks, and found zero meaningful advantage over placebo. Dermatitis scores didn't move. Steroid use stayed the same. The oil that skincare brands put on a pedestal failed its biggest test. And that study sits right there in published medical literature for anyone willing to read it. Why does borage oil still show up on labels? Because topical products and oral supplements are different lanes, and brands use that grey area like a hiding spot. You read borage and skin repair on the same bottle and connect dots the science never connected for you. And PA contamination doesn't care about your skincare routine either. Reviews on edible flowers found those same liver risk compounds can show up in products through cross-contamination and soil transfer. The clean beauty world and the chemistry problems share an address nobody wants to print on a label. Farmers plant, borage for bees. But the real money trick sits inside the seeds. Now forget supplements and face cream for a second, because borage runs a completely different operation out in real farm fields, and the numbers from that world are wild enough to make you stare at your screen. Bees don't casually visit borage, they take it over. A field study found bees accounted for 73% of all insect visits to borage flowers. Each flower pumps out about 4.0 milligrams of nectar with sugar concentration around 31.5%, delivering roughly 1.2 milligrams of sugar per flower, while pollen output hit 1.1 milligrams per flower. Spread that across a field averaging 4,570 flowers per square metre over a season, and one borage plant supplies about 1.1 grams each of nectar sugars and pollen to insects. The farmer payoff hits just as hard. Pollinator activity boosted fruit set by 43.3% and seed set by 26.8%. Harvest yields range from roughly 128 to 880 kilograms per hectare depending on method. The gap exists because borage seeds drop off the plant before you can collect them, which keeps farmers investing in better harvest tech every year. Borage is an entire agricultural economy, with bees running the front office and seed oil contracts paying the bills. When borage works for your body, and when it quietly works against you. So when does this plant actually work for you, and when does it quietly work against you? You have to stop treating borage as one thing. It's 3 different risk profiles wearing the same name, and mixing them up is exactly how people get into trouble without realizing it until a blood test comes back wrong. Borage flower as a garnish, once or twice a month, sits in the low concern zone. That food control dataset with 106 leaf samples and 33 flower samples exists because the safety question demanded real measurement, and the authors flagged microgreens hard because young borage tissue carries more risk per bite. Seed oil in capsule form has the cleanest evidence trail for joint discomfort, with that 24-week trial showing 36% fewer tender joints. That conversation with your doctor is worth having if you deal with RA borage oil for skin. That 151 patient trial already gave the answer. 12 weeks of 920 milligrams GLA daily moved nothing. And daily heavy consumption of borage leaves, tea, or microgreens without knowing your source pushes you straight into microgram math territory where regulators draw hard lines. The difference between "this helps me" and "this is quietly building up" comes down to dose, frequency, and source. 3 things most wellness content about plants never brings up. And that silence is exactly what makes the difference between a helpful tool and a slow mistake. After this, you will never look at a blue flower the same way. Again, every trending plant that blows up on your feed follows the same pattern. Something natural and pretty shows up. Someone with a nice kitchen films it. Your brain tags it as safe because the lighting is warm and the person looks healthy. 3 weeks later, you're buying it every week, and at no point did anyone hand you the research. Borage proved that a cucumber-tasting flower can carry liver risk at microgram doses. That same plant holds seed oil with GLA at 20 to 26% and produced 36% fewer tender joints in published trials, while completely failing its biggest skin test with 151 patients and 0 results. Out in the field, bees swarmed borage at 73% dominance across 4,570 flowers per square metre, while boosting fruit set by 43.3% for farmers counting their harvest. 4 questions will protect you from every trending ingredient that comes after borage. At which part of the plant are you eating? How often? Once a season or every single morning? What does the published data say versus what the brand claims? And what risk sits underneath the marketing at the dose you picked? People who get burned by wellness trends are never the ones who tried something once. They're the ones who turned curiosity into a daily habit and never asked a single question along the way. Borage isn't the problem. Your autopilot is. Turn it off and you'll be fine. If anything about this flower caught you off guard, tell us which part in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, hit the subscribe button and tap the next video on your screen right now.